All right, good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 64th episode of the Artist Run, playing Book of Hours for the first time on YouTube, and we're at a neat little inflection point for the playthrough. So, I don't think I really planned for this to go for as many episodes. I mean, this is certainly much longer than most Cultist Simulator stuff that I would do, and certainly there are faster ways of playing the game. But we've made... I think one of the things that's very interesting about this game is how the progress can sometimes be quite gradual, but also how you sort of can wake up and realize little details that have happened. So, of course, we very naturally have sort of moved through the house. So it's not just that we went from sort of the Keeper's Lodge... I should finish that laundry at some point. Keeper's Lodge up to the Regensburg room. And now we are in the Violet Chamber. Violet Chamber. And that actually is no less after we got Letters to My Successor from Gervenius Van Loren. So we are getting deeper into the house, and there just winds up being some texts that wind up reflecting that. But they have ultimately been driven by necessities inside of the game. So when we want to... we wanted to preserve the stolen secret, which was necessary to level up Edict's Liminal, and so that was the reason for moving in. Then, the other thing is that I have been focusing a lot on leveling up some skills, probably over-focused, but again, the real advantage here is that with these higher skills, I am going to be able to get some better memories or better drinks and so on and so forth. And with that, I'll be able to access deeper levels of the house, which is going to be something that I sort of want to focus on for the next little while, I think, alongside some of the books. Essentially, I'm past the points where I want to sort of throw everything at one particular challenge, or, a small set of challenges. And in this case here, I want to be thinking a little bit more generally in terms of how I can advance through the house and... what are maybe some more of my long-term goals? So, for instance, I am going to just write down some of these here. So we've got the stopped clock, and we need 10 winter for that. Now, I think that's going to be a fairly straightforward one to handle. In addition, we could do the rustling stair, so that's 11 scale moth. So I have less of an answer for how I'm going to handle that, although I believe the miners are of use in this particular case. Collapsed cellar is 11 heart, nectar, or scale. We've got the wheeled-filled spring. Now, this is kind of an interesting one. First of all, it's simpler than some of the others. It's moon and nectar. But this would also be where we start getting to the dawn period areas, and traditionally I've always left that to the end, but there's no necessary reason to do so. It just happens to be that's the way that the playthroughs turned out. We've got the Squawkphologia, so that one is 9 rose or sky. That may be a little more useful when summer comes by with the barbers. And finally, the Broken Bridge, which is 9 edge, forge, or knock. So I'm actually going to just work these out here. I'm going to write a little, kind of a series of columns for myself. So I've got winter, scale, moth, heart, moon, nectar, rose, sky, edge, knock. Okay, so I basically have just about every principles at play here. So when it comes down to winter, we could get 2 from Mr. Kill. So then we get 4 from the preparation. I'm more or less assured 2 from a memory. Now, it would be nice if I could get a little bit more. I think with Edict's Marshal, we have learned that I can get the Wormwood Dream, but that does ask quite a bit in terms of moon. Actually, the Nocturnary would be a good call here. So yeah, so we could throw in this intuition, though we'd have the... Okay, so we're up to 5. I can add a memory and an omen, so maybe the old wound. So let's think this through. If I add a confounding parable, so that can bring that up to 7. 8 with the tryst. So it's close, but it's not quite there. I can't remember if there... I would have thought that there would be some moon flowers, but... maybe not. Okay. What about pigments? We've got a couple here. I don't think the bitter black salts are going to help. Yeah, so unfortunately the inks cease to be pigments, so they're a little less helpful at this point. I feel like there are a few more steps that I could take that I'm not really thinking about right now, but... So I suppose there's the open... Well... Yeah, I guess it's the old wound is the real question for this. So let's go with the hypothetical. So let's say we've got the Tristan side here, so that brings us up to 6. Then we add intuition, that brings us up to 8. So unless the old wound brings us 2, that's not really going to get us anywhere. Now, if we had a foggy day, that's another story. But that's, you know, we're waiting basically till fall for that. But yeah, okay, let's say my big... Let's just say that my big winter memories are sort of far away. So with Mr. Kill, and then we would add the Whist as well. So Mr. Kill, basically we've got the 10 winter. Essentially we can unlock the stop clock whenever we want. I think that's a fairly obvious next step. Now, I suppose I would also want to think a little bit about where I get the next bit of winter from. So in his case, I know he'll work with wood. So in this case, the U-blank is probably a help here. But I think we've satisfied the challenge that's in front of us, so that's a worthwhile one for me to sort of move on from. Now, if I want to hire a... Well, I guess I couldn't do the hiring right now, but if I wanted a miner... Well, you know what? Let's actually worry about these when the time comes. I've already got enough to unlock a particular room, and I think I should be happy with that, so... Okay, Red Blue. It's a decent copy of Picasso, painted 20 years before Picasso painted the original. Brian Levinson up to his tricks again. Levinson has signed it, but added a question mark after his signature. So, site memory for our trouble. And a bronze spintria, so we will be able to afford a little bit more in terms of either, you know, oriflammes or language lessons. Might as well talk with Mrs. Kill. We never know what memories we're going to get. And we'll wait. I'm happy to look at another Levinson painting, but obviously we'll wait. I've already got tuppence, so I can restore my whist when the time comes. The other thing that's nice is by hiring Mr. Kill, I'll be able to work with the better now. I'll be able to just have some variety in terms of the people I'm talking with. All right, so actually, there's a couple things I can do here. So one, let's use the metal to investigate. So, Love in a Quiet Place, one of Dr. Levinson's prefigures, a close and impossible copy of a painting made 20 years later by Kirchner, whose work Levinson often anticipated in his mirror dreams. And it's not the wisest use of money, but at this point, the Sweet Bones has been the public house in Brandkrug since Cromwell's time. Its history is notable, its beer is not. Guests looking for discreet employment or for discreet assistance congregate in the snug. Have something cleaned at the Sweet Bones. For a shilling, the Sweet Bones will take care of my laundry. Sweet Bones is taking care of my laundry. Although I don't think I have towels. I have a basket of clean linen, but no towels. Yeah, so one of the reasons I was focusing a lot on the Wormwood Dream, Levinson has signed the painting but added ELK. Okay, there it is in Camino Tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. So we'll collect that. We'll take what we can through Dream with us. So let's go for the Solace. And with Keepo level Winter, Solomon's preparations are a precursor to the Great Ink Nillikant. Which is fine, but probably what I want to focus on right now is Ruby-Wise Ruin, because as far as Heart is concerned, which I don't have as many examples of, so with Mrs. Kill we have a bit of an opportunity now. So yes, we only have the one heart so far, but actually let's, while we're going overnight, let's game this out really quick. So Mrs. Kill is one heart. I'll grab my laundry. Fresh, clean, dry. So then we can add the core for 2. But we can also bring a storm whenever we want. So that already brings us up to 7. Now the Witching to Sane, I think, is more Grail than Heart, yeah. Oh yes, we also have a tool, so one, so that's 3, 7, okay, so we've got her up to 8, and that's before we start thinking about, you know, food and such. The food is what makes it a little complicated, because there are some things that I'm not quite ready to give up, and then there are some which are pretty obvious candidates. So for instance, like cuckoo honey, I don't want to give for the heart, but if I had, you know, if I was on the margins on a, you know, on a moth thing, I might be willing to. The canned ham is nice, but the canned ham, I have exactly one of those. So if I think I've got a bigger challenge coming up, I might want to be careful. Ruby-Wise Ruin's also a good example of this, because it's actually a very high intensity of Grail. But maybe that 2 heart is what I need. So for instance, when we have Mrs. Kill, a core, a storm, and a tool, so that's, again, 3 and 4 is 7, tool is 8. If I can bring in a Ruby-Wise Ruin and a sack of vegetables, well, all of a sudden I now have the 11, and I can open up the collapsed cellar. But maybe the scale is more appropriate in that case. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I want to kind of take the time to look at some of these, because especially for things like Edge and Forge, some of this is just a question of actually taking the time to take a look at what people are capable of. But we already know that we're going to bring in Mr. Kill for today, and then we will restore the Whist to equip him for the journey. And then, if I can, I want to read as many of these books as possible, just so I can get a head start. And I think I need a memory for the Geminiad, if I'm not mistaken. Ooh. Let's actually read that at the correct desk, shall we? Okay, so if we take that, Edict's Liminal, we add a Tryst, and I guess I could also add the Shears for good measure. Yeah, so we're already at 12, so I don't even need to worry about memories, which is good. We'll add the Fusine. So this is, I suppose, the advantage of waiting so long to read the Geminiad, is we graduated the need to to put something more serious together. I can master this mystery. And we have the whole season ahead of us, so now is really the time to start working out a few easy wins. So in this case, we'll take the Skeleton Songs. I might want to hold off on using the higher level Arab. I might still want to try and improve a follower. So Grail, Frustration, or Temptation. So I don't even really need to put Desires and Dissolutions in. Let's just bring in what's essential. So Applebright Euphonies should do the trick. I can master this mystery, enough Grail to match mystery Grail. It's also kind of nice that a music-oriented text is matched with a music-oriented skill. So we're leaving the winter stuff alone. Obviously, the Ivory Book and A Second Glory, these are things that would occupy my Whist, and I'm not really ready to work with that yet. But Letters to My Successor. This is an interesting question because my Lantern on its own is actually not that significant. Looks like 4 is my best here. So I can put together 6. Yeah, so I can get the 8 with a Revelation. So the question would be, do I want to dedicate an element of the soul towards getting that elevated lantern? Do I want to try my luck with Mr. Kill? I think probably it doesn't hurt to read the text in this case. So we'll use the Fet here. And I'll read the Watchful Tatra. And then the other thing that I'm going to do, again, I'm a little reluctant to spend too much time working out every sort of permutation, but let's take a quick second here and see if I were to spend some money on... Oh. Okay, so Miner's Offer... So the only scale we can really bring in here would be the health from Mr. Kill. Now, we do have the Old Moment, and the funny thing about this one is I actually think... I can't remember if it's 4 or higher. Because I was spending so much time thinking about its moth properties that I actually don't remember how much the Old Moment gave. I know some of the funny thing about the scholar level ones is that they can be deceptively powerful and also deceptively weak. So like the Name Day Riddle, for all the effort that you go into making it, really all that it gives you is 1 more point of moth than the thing that you probably used to create it. But that 1 extra point of moth can mean the difference between whether or not you unlock a room. And so in that sense, it's actually very, very useful. And I'm kind of in a similar... I'm in a similar boat. I don't think it's 3. Let's run on the assumption that it's a 4. So Old Moment is 4. With a drink, I will confess actually, it's sometimes a surprise to me that there is a scale drink. because I keep thinking there is, and it makes sense, right? Like, you wouldn't associate, you wouldn't necessarily associate scale with drinks. You would associate it. I originally thought that it might be that the scale was it didn't taste good, but then I'm like, fish. No, fish have scales. So yeah, I could use Strathcoin and then mackerel, which is actually a reason for me to maybe stop by Crowcross Sands a little bit more often. So if we brought in a minor, we used the health, the old moment, Strathcoin whiskey, and a mackerel. So 8 with the additions, 9 with the health, so 11. So with that in mind, now keeping in mind that I don't have an infinite supply of mackerel, we have 2 rooms that we can unlock that way, but only in spring. And that tells me that I want to start focusing on things that I can use to turn into old moments. However, it is also worth thinking. This does take moth, so I can keep the old moment overnight if needed. Okay, good. I've kind of cut myself off from beachcombing unless I want... Oh, no, I can use the core. In fact, I'm going to use the core. I don't have pearl and tide anymore? That doesn't make sense. Kind of hard to imagine me getting mackerel in the moor, so I'm gonna leave that aside. Although, some wintry wood would make a nice improvement. The other ones that I want to take care of here would be forge and forge, knock, and edge. So Denzel has 2 edge. Edge is also a bit unique because of the Arab, so we can in fact bring Arab plus to bear. We might be able to get away with a winning move. And I believe we have an edgy drink. Cater and Hero is not my best. Don't want to use the cuckoo honey. Okay, Shalas Jannings. And if I'm not giving up the honey, then I think I'm going to have to go without... I'm going to assume Denzel does not eat arsenic. Okay. So under edge, 2, 4, 7, 9. Which may actually still be enough to make it to the Cucurbit. Yep. But we can probably do better. So for forge, again, 2 from Denzel, 2 from metal, 2 from foresight, 2 from tea. Trying to think if I have any forgy food. And I don't think I do, so weirdly enough... Oh, but I do have a tool. Oh, I also have a tool for edge. Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Okay. Under knock, Timothy has got 1. So we can do a name day riddle, but I think a name day riddle only gives 2 knock as well, so say pattern. We don't have a tool to give him, so 2 from Shapt. Yeah, and actually, come to think of it, we don't have a whole lot of options in terms of sort of knocky food items. So there is a very powerful drink that I can give which has knock, but it takes quite a bit for me to be able to create. So ideally what I would be doing is I would be creating that out of the glassfinger toxin. And that takes a lot. Like, it's a keeper level recipe. So I think there's one that actually has it as a scholar recipe, but so I'm actually going to go so far as to say that with Reverend Timothy, we're at 5 knock right now. It's not that well, probably 6, but not that I don't think this can't be improved, but I think it's better for me to sort of work with what I know I have. So the last thing that I would look at would be Sky. So that is a Mr. Kill. And then we add a Faust. Now this is a bit of a funny one because I know I can add a memory. So we add a Storm in that case. So that actually already brings it up to 6. We can bring that up to 7 with a tool. So then the question is, where do I get the remaining Sky from? And that's an interesting question to ask, which I will ask at a later time, because again, the point of this is not to sit down and plan out the whole run. We are still in the morning. Okay, cloudy day. I mean, I always keep an eye on stuff like that because of the fact that I can get something reasonably powerful with Edict's Martial, but we're not quite ready to lock that in. The main one that I kind of want to think about is just, is there something that I can use, let's say with Mrs. Kill, let's say that we're already working with Mr. Kill, but is there something that I can get from Mrs. Kill while we're working on this? And honestly, right now, the best thing that I can do is just focus on the one... We'll focus on the one room, we'll keep the elements of the soul available so that I can follow up with other improvements, but we are definitely going to focus on scale later on. Alright, the Coffin Maker's Assistant, Tamer of Trees, Worker of Woods, Consigner of Cadavers. He has also been known to try his hand very diffidently at poetry. So we're not quite ready to send Mr. Kill sort of storming out and opening up rooms. We do actually want him to give us some memories as well, because we are potentially going to be upgrading some lessons. But for now, rest and refreshment. The spring and the landlady has served me a slice of her stargazy pie with the pilchard heads poking excuse me, cheekily through the hot crust. So we don't want to wind up in a situation like we were in previously, where I get a memory that I really need to sort of open up a particular book. And we are going to have a lot of lessons coming in. I'm really relying on the fact that we have all of spring ahead of us. This game has a sense of humor. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales? Well, who'd listen? This is to kill. Ryan Spry doesn't mind stopping for a gossip. And it did occur to me, so looking at Gospel of Zacchaeus. So the funny thing about Gospel of Zacchaeus is, I believe it wouldn't be that hard. So the problem with Synthic Taint is that it affects my Shapt. But I think with a memory, I would be able to read the Gospel of Zacchaeus without my Shapt being affected. The Watchful Tantra, notorious for its involvement in the deaths of David Jones and Meredith Blaine, two early physicists who each claimed to have the only copy and who ultimately fought a duel over it in 1840. The Tantra describes processes of occult illumination, including the formula which may show the way from the Hunter's Gate to the Serpent Gate, which in the West is usually called the Spider's Door. The sun passes through the house at the appointed time. Since the sun's division, the time has become uncertain. So there's a revelation which we're going to use as an input to something. So we'll go over to the Pale Desk and we will read... actually, you know what? I don't know if the desk in Van Loren's room will allow us to use Lantern, but it would be fitting if... this doesn't count as a desk that I can read at, so never mind. We'll read it at the Pale Desk. So just a little boost to bring us over the edge. Revelations. I can master this mystery. Now, I am conscious of the fact that we are pretty much at time. I'll go a little bit over on this, but I suspect that we will be reading all of these texts next week, which I feel a little bad about. I basically spent more time than I was planning on sort of the various upgrade plans and that, but it's kind of necessary. If I don't do this stuff, then I don't have anything to show for it at the end of the day. I'm trying to think if it makes sense for me to do anything in the sweet bones. Let's I will make some money. Do I want to do that with shaft or metal, or I think I can use the shaft in this case. There's not much work on offer in Brandkrug, but I can find 6 pence worth of odd jobs, or add a coin to find visitors seeking employment. Again, I'm not worrying about... Oh, right. I wanted to use my elements of the soul to create the old moment. I still have a little bit of time, but not a ton. And that's really going to play havoc with my... Drat. Okay. Do the Leonine Tantra for fear. We will do the Wrapped in the King for... And it did occur to me that I'm actually going to want the Hindsight to level up Mr. Kill. So if he winds up generating one of those, that's going to put me in an awkward spot. But I don't have a ton of options, so... Yeah, so I've set myself up for a tough little set of actions, but we'll make this work. I think maybe that'll motivate my later finish. All right, Contraband Flotsam, Salt Stained, and Wave Racked. Definitely not how I plan to spend the day, but I'm not unhappy with it either. I just kind of wish I got an earlier start on the old moment. Okay, the impulse doesn't quite get me what I need. He will give me one more chat before it becomes... So essentially, the thing I'm worried about is an overlap in terms of reading the text relative to his, to his contribution. Okay. Oh, and we are finishing up the texts. Okay. I've got a time in the back of my head in terms of when we'll wrap these things up. The Skeleton Songs, poems of greedy delight composed by the possibly pseudonymous Arbella Dusk, the rumored heiress turned madam turned poetess. In Arbella's introduction, she explains that the book was to be illustrated and that the Suppression Bureau would not permit it. She hints that the illustration still exists somewhere. The book is dedicated to Sue Parsifal of the Red Cup. The 26 delightful fruits, the 7 chastisements, the 9 gardens, the 4 regrets. And we've got Resurgences and Emergences, so that's not going to take a whole lot for us to upgrade. Obviously, it'll take a lot for us to upgrade today. Hang on. Was there a memory from one of these things? I could have sworn the Skeleton Songs gave us music as well. But I don't see it. I'll put that in my inventory then. It's possible that it also gave us an impulse, so the impulse would make sense here. But I'm a little weirded out by it. Okay, the Geminiad Volume 3, a fragile manuscript. Oh, hang on, this might also have music. So, a fragile manuscript illuminated by the twin shapes of sad and luminous beauty, with all the phases of the moon. It might be as old as the 7th century, but the language Fusine is much older. Coral decorates its cover, and its sharp pages are sharp enough to slash. Its page edges are sharp enough to slash a throat. These pages outline the nature and the doctrines of an hour that demands the union of what has been separated, an hour that is sought at the water's edge and beneath the moon, the witch and sister. The language is elusive, enigmatic, intricate. It'll take some untangling. The third volume of the Geminiad reminds us that the witch and sister has been known to manifest as the sister and witch, and that this face may heal while the other face is always hungry. It implies connections between the witch and sister and the hours of the wood, especially the secret keeper called the Velvet. But it is ambiguous on whether the witch and sister is a wood hour proper, and it speaks at length about the sadness of the two who are one, the sadness that remains from their time as flesh. So now we've turned into quite a difficult... All right, yeah, so we have 2 Beguiling Melody books. That makes a little more sense. I'm delighted by it, but it obviously this is going to be tough for us to follow through on. Okay, so I think what I'll do here will... I'm just going to have to switch these around. Okay. So I've got quite a bit of work ahead. Oh, is it just 3? For some reason I thought it was 3. But anyways, we are going to want to move... up here. Yeah, no, there is 3. Okay, so that's actually going to turn into a 6. So yeah, that's going to involve some work, right? Because the mothy stuff was a challenge. So how do I have... All right, I have enough time to read letters to my successor as well. Nope, I've got another minute. All right, never mind. That'll be something we can start the day with. Again, my focus was definitely on getting the old moment underway. Otherwise, I'm going to forget that on Monday. Okay, another gossip. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. So I'm going to bring back the shaft in this case. So originally I wanted to try and use something that would give me health for the beach. But in this case it looks like I might be needing to get a hindsight from for Mr. Kill to be able to upgrade him. We are starting to run out of time here. Okay. Something went away. So the Leonine Tantra, and the most notorious translation of the Leonine Tantra, Ashley Phillips, is listed as the translator, but their existence is explicitly denied in the prologue. This confusion is characteristic of books which mention the Great Hooded Princes. The Tantra describes elliptically the Great Hooded Princes and the multitudinous ways in which they influenced wars against foreign invaders in the land of the Great River, although in a sense they were also invaders. Lions can be created, not as children are created, nor as words are created, but as weapons are created. The Great Hooded Princes learnt to create lions from their spyings on the affairs of the hours, and not all lions now serve the Golden General. So, Wrapped in the King. We've read this a few times, but detailed accounts of secret bacchanals and ecstatic dances observed in the necropolises and graveyards in southern Europe and in Egypt and in Anatolia. The author... Oh, I know what happened. I put the wrong... This got me a foresight. in Egypt and in Anatolia. The author is a self-confessed ghoul, an eater of buried flesh. He claims to have witnessed the dances while at his feasting. The dances draw from the traditions of the mysteries of the cults of Isis and Sybil, but include both symbolic and literal flayings, and the human heart is always central to the rites. The author punctuates his accounts with queasily sensuous descriptions of his own interrupted feasts. At these greater feasts, a black pig is always crowned as king before its slaying. On this occasion, its heart was weighed in the balance against a knot of feathers, and its skin became a cape for the officiant. Its flesh was left for the crows, but I must confess that my interest was not in the carcass, but in the perfumed flesh of the milliner laid fresh in the earth. And yeah, the incandescent tantra I categorized incorrectly. Michael Blockley, the eccentric iron magnate, was fond of quoting from this tantra. Blockley died in a factory fire. Dialogues with an entity called the Crucible Prince. The prince warns about the appetites of his mistress, the burning queen, and the peril of the naked desire she shares with the sun, but professes his loyalty nonetheless. A rite which changes is necessarily a rite which destroys, but a great change requires a destruction of savage extent. So that really puts me behind the 8 ball, but let's try and do our best with what we've got here. So it'd be better for me to put this in the memory. Okay, so if I could add a tool, we'd be fine. That's not happening. So my next best is to... what? Oh, this is even harder than I thought. I don't think there's a scale wood, but let's just verify before I... Okay. I'm not gonna lie, Lignum Vitae Blanc is a bitter, bitter pill, but it does get me what I need. So now I can focus my attention on getting that hindsight. Okay, so yes, the plan for the rest of the day, if I can, get Mr. Kill opening up the stopped clock. I don't think there's anything for me to try in terms of resurgences and emergences. I mean, we can take a look, right? Or I shouldn't be counting that out, actually. We have quite a bit more that we can use than I appreciated. So, with where Resurgences and Emergences is right now, at minimum we could level this up at least 1 if I brought back a Trist or an Arab. It puts me in a tight spot in terms of getting Mr. Kill ready to go, but I think it will be worth it. But we're also almost 15 minutes over, so I'm gonna declare closure on this. But as you can see, we are spoiled for choice in terms of rooms to unlock as well as tasks to undertake. So I am very much looking forward to navigating through all of these options. And hopefully for those of you who are maybe feeling that things are dragging down in terms of my pursuit of skills, that is certainly something that will continue to be a feature. Obviously, being able to level up things like Resurgences and Emergences, and, you know, just to be able to read all of these books that I've been sitting on. Like, I don't want to ignore the possibilities that have been opened, particularly with something like, you know, 9 Moth, and now I've got the Serenity of the Black Wood, and actually I should really be moving these onto the appropriate shelf here. Like, we've opened up a lot of possibilities in terms of works that we can read and things that we can do. But for now, I think it wouldn't hurt for me to start opening up a few different rooms just so I can see if I can either access a few different books or otherwise just see a little bit more variety. But again, all of that will be handled in next week's episode. So thank you very much for watching. Sorry for the extended time. I know that's been happening a little bit more often lately. And if it is getting in the way of people's enjoyments, please do let me know. I'll try and come up with a better balance. But the last couple of episodes have actually been because I just get really caught up in this game. But again, have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you on Monday to continue our journey through Hush House. Take care.